Goal setting can be such an interesting topic for people. For some that are type A, like myself, goal setting is something that ignites my spirit and makes me super excited, especially at the start of a new year. But for others, goals and New Year's resolutions are something that just don't mesh with their personality. Today, I'm going to try to make a really useful video on how I goal set and how I think that it can best benefit you as a business owner, as a person, or as a bookkeeping business owner. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about my bookkeeping business goals and how I've set those for myself, as well as how I am going to achieve those goals that I set for myself. New Year's just happened, and yes, I'm sure a lot of us have made New Year's resolutions. However, I really like to frame them more as goals because that's really what they are. And I don't like to think of them as a picture of a certain year of 2022 or 2021, but more of just what I personally want for my life and what I define to be successful. This is Realistic Bookkeeping. My name is Rachel Brown. I hope you've landed on this channel to find some useful and practical information. So I'm going to dive right into our topic for today, goal setting. I definitely am a goal-oriented person, and I have been probably since I was, I don't know, probably a teenager. I've noticed those traits about myself. But setting goals for your business can be pretty daunting and a little hard to get into. The thing about your bookkeeping business is it may be a side hustle for you, or it might be a full-time job. This could translate to other businesses, side ventures that you may have, and goal setting, I think, is particularly challenging when you haven't framed which of these your business falls into. Is your business a side hustle, or is it your full-time responsibility and where all of your focus is going? I think that needs to be the first distinction before you can kind of really goal set. Because if you have a side hustle, the goal may be to turn it into a full-time job, or it may be to keep it at a side hustle and be able to manage it with your full-time job or with another part-time job, or maybe you're stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad and have to balance the two worlds. So what's important to remember about goal setting is that they're not singular goals. They are a part of your everyday life. And you may want to sit down and goal set about your personal life and your business life at the same time, because they certainly do interact. And it'll also help you set boundaries between the two. Whereas a side hustle, you know that you need and have to have time for other goals in your life. Whereas if this is your full-time job or your full-time business, and this is where you're pouring, your 9 to 5 heart and soul, it may not actually be a 9 to 5. It may be longer than those hours, but you still need to set clear boundaries, and all of those things need to go into account when you are goal setting in order for them to be practical for you. It's also okay to not know the answer to that question. When I was first starting out my bookkeeping business, it was a side hustle, and I really didn't even goal orient it towards a full-time job. But opportunities became available. I'll try to link some videos here and down below of my journey to this point where now I do goal orient this to a full-time job. And that's really changed my perspective. But it's okay if you don't know the answer to which category it falls into. The other thing is that goal orienting is scary. Setting goals for your business, setting goals for yourself is a really emotional process, and I think you need to allow yourself some time to honor that process. I know it sounds really cheesy and very like, namaste about life, but in the end, these are things that are what you define as successful, and it can feel scary to set those in hard stone and then not meet them. So there is some emotion involved in setting goals for yourself, and it's okay to be scared of the process. But I do think that it's an important step in the right direction of becoming successful, whatever you define that to be. So let's talk about some goal setting basics. In order to set goals, we need to kind of have a framework for how we develop them and then how we achieve them. The idea is not to sit and be emotionally okay with the goals that you set. It's more about setting the goals and then achieving them. So in order to do that, when we think about goals, the best way to go about this is to, yes, look at the end picture of what you want this goal to look like. Create a vision for yourself, but then make it really realistic, including some things like a time frame in which you want to achieve your goal. If it's a New Year's resolution, that may be that by the end of the next year you achieve these goals, but it could also be a 6-month time frame or a 2-month time frame, or a 3/4 of a year time frame. It can be as specific as you want it to be, as long as you have a time frame attached so that you know whether you met your goal or not that you're setting out. Then once you've made the goal, whatever that may be, and you've created how much time you're giving yourself to achieve that goal, then you need to work backwards, and that could be backwards in month increments. It could be working backwards in quarter increments of how you're going to get to that goal. And I'm going to go over some logistics of how I've just recently done this back at the beginning of January of 2022. The other thing that I think people really don't talk about when they talk about goal setting is looking at where you are now. So you can have a dream, you can have a goal, you can have a vision, you can have increments of working towards that. But if you don't know where you are today and how that meets up with the goal, obviously you're not meeting your goal today, otherwise it wouldn't be a goal. But you need to see where you are so that you can build those building blocks to get to where you want to go. So let's see my scribbled out version of this for 2022, specifically with my bookkeeping business. I'll also talk about some personal goals because they are intertwined, like I said. So before I did anything fancy, this was my goal setting work for 2022. And what I did was at the very top, I literally scribbled out where I am right now with my bookkeeping business. And I'll give you a little insight as to what that is. I'll try to show this or share this at some point. But at the end of 2021, my bookkeeping business was focused on factually these things. That's really important. It's not emotionally how you feel about your business. It's factually where your business is. So for the bookkeeping industry, that might be the number of clients that you have, whether they're virtual, whether they're in person, or maybe how many hours you're spending on your bookkeeping business. For me, at the end of 2021, I had 3 big bookkeeping clients and approximately 2 smaller clients. So these are clients that maybe I don't weekly touch their bookkeeping, but maybe every month, potentially even every quarter. And then underneath of that, I defined what I was making. So a lot of the times business-wise, you're gonna look at the financials of what you're making in your business. And I tried to put down a month what I'm making, what I'm bringing in financially from those clients, and how much time that was taking me. So how many clients, the amount of money I was making, and the time that was involved. And again, this is my full-time job now, so it's the only type of work that's really scheduled into my week. To the side of that, for my personal goals, I am reading a devotional daily, and I really like that, so I want to keep that up, but that's where I'm at right now at the end of 2021. And I do yoga about twice a week. That's kind of dropped off, and unfortunately, I'm not meeting my goal right now, but that's where I was at the end of 2021. So I put all that just kind of scribbled up here at the top. But at the bottom is where I want to be at the end of 2022. And I did make this a yearly goal and then kind of work through it through my year. So at the end of 2022, what I want from the 3 big bookkeeping clients, I would like to be at 4 big bookkeeping clients. And you may think that that's not a big change from 1 big bookkeeping client to 4, just adding 1 more. But I knew there were going to be some changes in the clients that I currently had. I knew that 1 was going to go away. So I was really gaining 2 with this goal because I knew that I was soon going to be losing 1. So what you want to understand is that these goals are not to be fancy for someone else. I'm not giving you my goals to impress you. I'm giving myself goals to measure my version of success. And for me, that's 4 big bookkeeping clients. But I also wanted to up my small bookkeeping clients from 2 to 4. And what I did next to those was I approximated what each of those clients would bring me in my bookkeeping business, so that I could then make a new monthly goal at the bottom of that. So number of clients, new monthly goal, and I also set a working hour minimum for that, or maximum, I guess, the maximum I want to be working a week. In addition to that, I added personal goals of being on track for consistent Bible study, so not necessarily just a devotional, but a Bible study program to kind of be consistent in. And then consistent yoga with maybe 1 class a week in person, just because I'd like to eventually get to that place where it's worth the financial investment to go and do yoga maybe in a group session. So now comes the really important nitty-gritty work. It actually took me a lot longer than you might think to even write down those goals, because I didn't want to set too lofty of goals, and I also didn't want to set goals that were too easy to accomplish. So it's important, and I'll talk about this later, but to be realistic with yourself. And as my channel states, in realistic bookkeeping, I am all about being real and honest about your process, about your goals, about what you're trying to achieve. So now once you've scribbled out at the top and the bottom where you are and where you want to go, all this in the middle was literally a calendar that I just needed something to spread it out into chunks. And this is really probably a throwback to my lesson planning days as a teacher, because as a teacher, you have a curriculum you have to achieve, and you only have a certain amount of time in order to achieve it. So I knew where I needed to end. I knew all the things I needed to teach in between. It was about putting them in a place so that I knew when holiday breaks were, when teacher work days were, when I was going to be with the students and when I wasn't, when we're half days, and really had to dictate when each lesson, what each chapter, when each test, each quiz was gonna fall into what day and into what time frame. So I kind of mapped out all the months here, and I like bookkeeping because it gives me quarters in my mind, the first quarter of the year, the second quarter of the year. And within each quarter comes some different tax phases. But what I did was I just kind of inserted, if I want to go from 3 big bookkeeping clients to 4, when do I want to gain a client? So I put in January, I wanted to gain 1 client. I didn't even mark if that was a big or a small client. I just wanted to gain 1. And then in February, I knew I was going to drop a client, so I put that down. And then I kind of gave myself these time frames and other things that were going on in my life. So for instance, I know that tax season is really the big first quarter of the year. So I need to keep in mind that maybe it's not realistic to add a small client within that time frame. Maybe I'll add another small client in the summer, right? So this is kind of like your rough sketch, okay? I kept this, and I'll keep it and look at it at the end of the year. But where I really do the true planning is here. And so now I'm gonna go on for a minute about the goal planner from Christy Wright. I don't actually know if there are any left of these for 2022, but Christy Wright is one of the Dave Ramsey personalities, the Ramsey Solutions Network. I love Dave Ramsey. I think he is a great financial advisor. I love listening to his podcast. Maybe I'll try to link it down below. And the Christy Wright Show has some YouTube videos that you can kind of get some of her perspective on time management, planning, business, small business ownership, all of those things. I think she's great. I'll also link down below the Business Boutique, which is like a guide to small business specifically from a woman's perspective, but I think that it's absolutely wonderful as a framework for men as well. But the goal planner is where I take this crappy little piece of paper that I ripped out of my old planner, and I take it and I make it something legitimate, okay? So I've got all this work, and what I did was I went in the goal planner and I basically took the month of January and wrote out my goals more specifically. Actually, I think it's like right before that. Oh, and you'll get to see some lovely artwork by my daughter. So here, and I'll try to share this, is basically where I set these goals and then it gave myself another deadline just to see it here. And then what Christy Wright talks about that's really important is then going to the month, to your monthly breakdown, and putting over here how you're gonna accomplish your goals. So I apologize if this is easy to read through the camera. But basically, I listed these goals and numbered them so that every month I knew I was working towards a piece of that goal, right? So my goals here for goal number 1 of gaining clients, I want to gain 1 big client by January 31st. And I get to highlight and check that off because I actually accomplished that this month. But it's important that every month I have something related to these big goals so that I know I'm working towards it. And even more than that, I have to work on them every week. It doesn't mean that every week has to be something, but I should have in my mind how I'm working through day by day to relate to those goals. So, I know that the process is a little nitty gritty and maybe you're not as type A about it, but this is how I make my dreams come to reality. That's really important to me, that I'm working towards something and I know that I'm successful at that. Like I said, this type of goal planning is good for everyday use as well. I'm going to use this for my yoga sessions and becoming healthier as a person. I'm going to use this for my financial goals, my personal financial goals with my husband. I'm going to use this for my faith and making sure that I'm headed in the right direction with my life overall. It does not have to be business oriented, but it certainly is good for business goal orienting. Aside from my own personal goals as a bookkeeper, I think it's really important to get some variety of what other people set as their goals for their bookkeeping business or for their side business. I'm actually going to pull from a comment from one of my previous viewers. I will try to post it somewhere so you can actually read it for yourself. But basically, I got this comment that this person had a long history of work experience before becoming a bookkeeper, and their experience in work was mainly in medical insurance and auditing payments for a hospital. And so this commenter said that their goal was very clearly broken down into about 4 or 5 steps. So I'm going to kind of run through what their goals were. Their first goal was very simple and very easy to mark whether they had achieved it or not. It was to get QuickBooks certified. You guys, this is a great way to start out your bookkeeping business. I will try to link above to my video on QuickBooks certification, and I'll probably be making a new one soon. But how easy as a first step, a first goal towards working towards their bigger goal, which I'll get into. But what's really nice is that it's easy, so it gives you momentum in committing to this new idea and something very tangible to say, okay, I did this, I marked it off, I checked my box, okay? Their second goal after that was to work for somebody else, to gain the experience that they knew that they needed, and they were going to try to find someone to help them be a bookkeeper, right? So this may have been a 9-to-5 hourly type of job for a CPA. It could have been for another company, but their goal was to gain experience by working for someone else. Their third goal after that was to create their LLC and their business entity and the structure for their bookkeeping business so that then they could gain clients. Now, these are very specific but very tangible goals in order to meet the larger goal that, get this, within 2 or 3 years, what they wanted to do was to be earning a certain salary and to also niche within the medical bookkeeping realm. So small goals, tangible, specific goals to meet their larger goal of what successful meant to them. I will also kind of make a note here, just because for my bookkeepers out there, it's really important to be clear and honest and real about where you're going with things. I did not set a goal that I want to make $1 bazillion, okay? I didn't. I don't know if you can see what I outlined on my paper that I want to make at the end of the year, but I don't need to become a millionaire this year. I don't even know if I'll become a millionaire at all. I hope I will with my retirement, but certainly not in my bookkeeping business. It's okay for your goals to not be, I want to be a millionaire, okay? Make them realistic, make them what you want them to be. I also don't want to have all virtual clients. I know a lot of bookkeepers that first set out to do their bookkeeping on the side virtually and make a good income. And I don't think that that's wrong, but it's not reality for me. I like to have a balance of people that I see on a weekly basis and people that I see maybe once a quarter. I like to have the balance and don't need to set myself up for all virtual or all in-person bookkeeping clients. I also don't want to outsource or employ anyone in my business this year. I want to continue to grow slowly and organically and maybe take on somebody as a subcontractor within the next couple of years, but I didn't even write that into my goals at all, because not anywhere on my plate is managing someone else. It's only managing myself and the clients that I take on. I also didn't put any emotional words into my goals. All of it was factual. I didn't write down, I want to be happier. I didn't write down, I want to be more positive. I do want those things, but those aren't the goals that I write down because they're really, really hard to know whether you met those goals. The last thing that I want is for my goal to be vague or too emotionally invested or too emotionally based so that I don't know whether I've met them. What I'm hoping is that those things come as a byproduct of all of these other goals. Certainly don't set any goals that are bad for yourself or negative towards what you want, but they're not emotionally based. In the end, you guys, you have to be realistic with yourself. You have to honor your feelings and your emotions towards things, and don't set a goal that someone else wants for you. Set goals that you want for yourself that you know you'll be working towards. I hope this video has been helpful, and I will see you next time.